Okay, folks, we are officially live. I started really promptly at noon last time, but I'll give people a couple minutes or a couple seconds to find us here, since we are very punctual. And even knowing us, a lot of people end up being a little late, even for our internal meetings. But just to introduce myself to get started, my name is Julia Correa, and I work with Water for People. I've been with the organization for about a year and a half, and this marks our second town hall. So our effort to bring together our community virtually, which of course is a lot of how community is continuing to be built during this time. So I'm going to just go ahead and start sharing the PowerPoint that we'll be using for today. I see some folks trickling in, so welcome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get moving. So like I said, for folks who maybe missed my introduction, my name is Julia Correa, and I'll be moderating and kind of hosting our town hall for today. I'm really excited to get to dive in a little bit more on our work and some specific elements of the work that we do, and also get to hear and learn from some of my awesome colleagues who you can see on the screen here as well. And I want to give a special shout out. We have a lot of folks who are on the line who are long-term supporters, new supporters to our work. And it's just exciting for us to be able to bring together so many folks during this time, especially in these new kinds of platforms. And I want to give a special shout out. We have some folks who are new members of our monthly giving program called Club 6. So I want to say hello and welcome. I know you've been engaging with us in a couple of different ways. And so we're excited that we saw a good turnout of folks who are interested in attending this town hall. And the last thing I'll plug before I kind of go into our agenda and what we'll be covering today is we are going to try to have a little bit of a selfie challenge. So we encourage folks who are watching, either take a picture of yourself. If you don't want to, you can take a screenshot of your screen that you're watching the town hall on. And we're going to repost as many as possible. So add those to your Instagram stories or to your Twitter feeds, and we'll try to repost and retweet as many as we can. Just a way that we would love to see some of the faces and hear from folks who are online with us today. So just to go into the agenda of what we're going to cover, we're going to give a high-level overview of Water for People, who we are and what we do. Like I said, we have a mixture of folks who are joining us here today, so a lot of people who are fairly new to our work. But then the real meat and kind of the exciting part for me of this presentation is to dive a little bit deeper into the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and specifically SDG 6. So we like acronyms, and so SDGs is how we love calling them, not only at Water for People, but as a sector. So we're going to dive into a little bit of SDG 6 and what exactly that means and how that plays out in the work that we do. Then we're going to hear from Georgia, who's one of my colleagues on the screens, about ways that you can get involved. We had a lot of folks who reached out and were interested to know how they can get more engaged with Water for People in our work. But then the really fun part of these town halls is we leave a good chunk at the end for question and answers. So thank you for everyone who submitted them beforehand. For folks who are just joining now, we would love for you to comment questions on either Facebook or YouTube throughout the PowerPoint and throughout the presentation. We'll have kind of an open session at the end, and that's when we hope to address as many questions as possible that we'll have time for today. So throughout the PowerPoint and throughout the presentation, if questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. But that is enough for me for now. So I want to introduce two of my colleagues, Kate and Ellen. Kate serves as our monitoring and evaluation, which we again abbreviate M&E, and sanitation officer at Water for People. She's been with the organization for about 4 years. Ellen serves as our senior management of program learning and has been with Water for People for about 3 years. And both of them bring a ton of knowledge, both in the sector, but then also in their own roles. And so I'm really excited that we'll be able to have a chance to learn from both of them today. So I will be passing that off to Kate.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to kick us off, setting the stage for a global challenge that is really an enormous challenge before the entire world. And in order to understand what drives our work at Water for People, let's take a look at access around the world to water, sanitation, and hygiene services. We often use an acronym, WASH. It's a very appropriate acronym, I know, to abbreviate water, sanitation, and hygiene. And so when I talk about the global water and sanitation crisis, what am I talking about? To start, let's look at some numbers. 1 in 3 people around the world don't have access to safe water. How many people is that? It is absolutely staggering. To put it in perspective, it's 2.1 billion people. That is more than the populations of North America, of the whole Western Hemisphere, and Europe combined, that don't have access to water. And then when we look at the sanitation side of the problem, it's really even worse. It's when we say sanitation, I'm talking about toilets, latrines, a place that you can go to the bathroom. 1 in 2 people, that's over 4 billion people, don't have access to a safe and dignified toilet to use. That is more than half of us walking around the planet. So the effects of the global water crisis, it really can be felt day to day on the 1 in 2 people around the world and 1 in 3 people around the world that don't have access to water. So on this next slide, we see a diagram of the cycle of poverty. I'm referring to the systemic marginalization of communities who lack access to fundamental rights, such as clean water to drink and a safe place to go to the bathroom in their home. These families have a harder time accessing opportunities for education, economic mobility, healthcare. Without clean and accessible water, the cycle of poverty perpetually continues. So what you can see from the diagram on the screen here, one way this plays out is a lack of access to water can mean hours wasted daily seeking out a water source. The sources are not only distant, but they're often unprotected. Dirty water takes hours from someone's day and even still can cause poor hygiene and waterborne illness. This leads to poor health and hygiene. That leads to missing school and work. Missed school and work means a lack of job opportunities and lower earnings. And this leads to a lack of economic development for communities. This is what I'm talking about when I say the cycle of poverty perpetuates itself. So I hope you can visualize this cycle in your head. This is just a simplistic way to explain it. Water continues to be the foundation of society and human life, and communities and individuals reaching their full potential. So we believe it needs to be at the center of development conversations. The global water crisis is not a new issue. These statistics have been around for a long time, and we're not the first people to talk about them. Decades of work and billions of aid dollars have been dedicated to breaking the global cycle of poverty via access to drinking water. This work of supporting economic and social development opportunities in low and middle income countries is called international development work. Well, what we've seen in international development work is some really detrimental patterns, especially in water and sanitation. When development work does not include the voices, the leadership, the buy-in from local communities, it's really largely unsuccessful. And that cycle of poverty, it continues, even if it was paused for a short time during a project. And so, for example, in the WASH world, that could look like a very common circumstance of a well-intended donor coming in and installing water pumps and celebrating success and going home. Then that pump breaks and there's no money to repair it, and there's not anyone trained in the community, and they don't know where to get the spare parts. And then the community is again without water. And we've just seen this happen time and time again. So with all that background, I'm going to pass it off to Ellen to start talking about some solutions to these problems.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kate. So for a long time, Water for People was one of those well-intentioned nonprofits that Kate just mentioned, up until about 2011, when we had this epiphany. We realized that something needs to change. We have to change our model completely. The way that we work needs to shift away from this status quo. So we realized that while infrastructure is critical, the water systems, the pipes, the toilets, that's obviously a critical part of this. We also needed to take what we call a system strengthening approach. So we need to work with communities, build capacity, build institutions to sustain that infrastructure for the long term. So in 2011, we came up with what we call our Everyone Forever model. And that is our model, our solution to this global water and sanitation crisis. So we partner with districts in 9 different countries. And a district is somewhat equivalent to a county here in the US. And we will work with those district partners for years. not just the months it takes to install the infrastructure and work on certain projects, but we stay in that district for years until we reach every community, every household, every school, and every health center with access to high quality wash services. So how does this link to those sustainable development goals, or the SDGs, as Julia mentioned in the beginning? In 2015, several years later, the UN and world leaders got together and agreed to 17 SDGs. So these are together a universal call to action to create a better world by 2030. So we've got 10 years left to go. On the next graphic, this is something that Water for People developed to really highlight the various SDGs that are related to our work. So the biggest, of course, is SDG 6, which is ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. You may notice that sounds very similar to our Everyone Forever model, and in fact, it's almost identical. So that really just validated our model and that this was the right way forward for us to work. So you can also see that these goals are all connected to each other. So our work in WASH is very closely tied to health, education, gender, climate, these various different sectors. We know that access to high quality wash services improves outcomes in these other areas, but on the flip side, we're also dependent on these other sectors, these partners reaching their goals for us to reach SDG 6 as well. So we all are needing to work together. And we know that these days in our COVID world, that intersectionality and connectedness of our work is more clear and more important than ever. Health risks are at an all-time high. We know that clean water saves lives. We know that access to safe and dignified sanitation and hygiene services saves lives. Just to make connected to the personal level, think about if you didn't have water available in your house to wash your hands. Or even worse, think about if you went into your doctor's office or a hospital and they didn't have water to wash their hands. So to make this very real, right now in the districts where we work, there's 273 clinics and schools that still lack water services and toilets in their facilities. So our work continues. Some of our work is delayed or on hold in the meantime, just to keep our teams and the communities where we work safe. But we're pushing forward with everything that we can to reach these communities and these clinics and schools with access to water, sanitation, and hygiene services. All right, so digging a little bit deeper into SDG 6, we'd love to talk about all of the SDGs, but we're really going to focus in on the one that relates to water, sanitation, and hygiene. There are 6 targets within the broader SDG 6 goal, and we're really going to dig into 3 of those targets specifically to explain how our work is making progress towards achieving the greater goal of SDG 6. We're just going to touch on 3 today. You may leave the presentation wanting more information, and Julia and Georgia have assured us that they're hoping to do future town halls focused on the SDGs as well, so more to come. But the first target that we'll focus on is safe and affordable drinking water, and I'll turn it back over to Kate for this one.
Perfect, thanks, Ellen. So the first kind of sub-target of SDG 6 is safe and affordable, universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. This means many things. Safe and affordable drinking water, it means high quality water in terms of contamination. It means, or no contamination. It means availability of water every day and reliability of that access. It means close proximity of the water services and at a cost that everyone can afford. Affordability doesn't mean free. In the past, we thought a lot about just that initial access, like building a well, but we've learned that investing in water is so much more than investing in just a single glass of water or a bottle of water. It's really the whole ecosystem that can provide that service into the future. So how we do it in our homes and countries, in my home, I pay for my water, and that's part of what makes water systems sustainable. Globally, we don't believe in giving away water, or we'll be back down to broken down pumps. So extensive work goes into setting the cost for water. The amounts are always decided alongside with communities. Collecting payments for water allows communities to finance and develop the ecosystem in which water access is sustainable. This includes a network of mechanics and supply chains for parts so that repairs can be made, committees of community leaders to help facilitate all of this and collect the appropriate fees. This leadership empowers local people to develop and own their own water systems and manage them into the future. I'll pass it back off to Ellen for the next target of SDG 6.
Okay, great. So the second target that we'll dive into is about providing adequate and equitable access to sanitation and hygiene. So just like Kate mentioned for water, we know that toilets are necessary for a healthy and safe life. When people don't have access to a bathroom either within their homes or close by their household, they have to go find another place to go. So sometimes this could be in streams or fields or other unprotected areas, which is dangerous for both the environment and from a public health standpoint, in terms of contaminating those water sources with waste that then go to the households to drink. This is especially important for women and girls when we talk about equitable access. When you don't have access to a toilet either in or close by your home, women and girls have to go looking for a private place outside of their homes, and this can be particularly dangerous, especially at nighttime. This is also the impact of this inequitable access is also felt in schools. Girls often stop going to school when they start their periods because they find that they don't have a good way to manage their periods within their schools. So how is Water for People working towards this target? Just like water services, toilets aren't free, and we don't give toilets away, but we do make sure that families have access to affordable toilet options, access to financing options for those toilets, access to skilled contractors and supplies within their communities to build their own bathrooms, and safe ways for communities and families to take care of the waste. So we know that when families invest in their own bathrooms and they have the ability to choose their own toilets and build their bathrooms exactly the way they want, they're more likely to use and maintain them for the long term. This also applies to our work in schools. So we build sanitation facilities in schools with toilets and hand washing stations. We focus on building separate facilities or stalls for girls so that they have the privacy when it comes to managing their periods, and also access to menstrual hygiene products for the girls. It doesn't stop with building this infrastructure, but we also promote community education when it comes to proper hygiene practices, such as keeping bathrooms clean, and also especially important these days with hand washing. And then finally, the third target that we'll dive into for SDG 6 is related to sustainable water management, or what we refer to as water resources management. So creating this long-term access to water and building the infrastructure and working with communities to develop water committees and capacity building and making sure there are supply chains for spare parts to fix the systems when they break down. None of that matters if there's no water. So we know that by the year 2030, which is when we aim to achieve SDG 6, demand for water will far outrun supply of water. So water resources management has to be a critical part of all of our work. So it's incorporated into all of our decision making at all levels. This is the process of planning, developing, and managing water resources, both in terms of water quality and water quantity. So depending on the local context of the districts and the communities where we work, different methods and tactics that we use could be reforestation for erosion control. It could be rehabilitating the wetlands where the water comes from, developing water safety plans together with district partners, particularly to help respond to floods or drought situations, supporting local water quality labs for testing water quality, and ensuring proper waste treatment. So all of these efforts are focused on ensuring the sustainability of the actual water sources, so that we can build the systems to bring that water to communities for access. So with that, those are the 3 targets that we wanted to address today. I want to go ahead and pass the mic over to Georgia David. Georgia's our community engagement manager. She's been with Water for People for just about a year now. She supports our committed network of volunteers and plays a critical role in engaging our whole Water for People community, which is now almost all virtual. So she's going to share some of the ways that you can take what you've learned today on the town hall and further engage with Water for People.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ellen and Kate. Hopefully, as Ellen mentioned, that you feel compelled to take the next step and get involved. I certainly appreciate all of the backstory and information. I think the more we can learn about what goes in on the program side, it feels certainly much more compelling and really timely, especially going through a global pandemic, and understanding how wash systems and global health really go hand in hand. So thank you so much. As Ellen mentioned, my name is Georgia David. I'm a community engagement manager at Water for People, and hopefully this has gotten you excited to take your next step in getting involved with Water for People. So I'll give you a few quick ways that you can start your involvement today. One of which the first one is you're already doing it. So pat on the back to you. Follow and engage with us on social media. So obviously you're engaging right now and being a part of this town hall, which we so appreciate. We know everybody's time is extremely valuable, always, but certainly right now. But with so much, as Ellen mentioned, of all of our engagement opportunities and ways to share information have moved virtually. Our social media channels are a great way to stay updated, get questions answered, things like this, which I'm very excited for the Q&A in a little bit here. And really, hopefully for your sake, dig in understanding what type of programming Water for People does, the stories. I think our website does such an amazing job of highlighting individuals and their lives and how you're impacting that. So engage with us on whatever platform you choose. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So certainly lots of ways for you to stay updated. I'll make a quick plug. I know Julia mentioned it at the beginning about the selfie challenge. I got a lovely email from a champion, Brianna, who sent it in earlier, but I'm sure there are people on our social channels as well. So if you haven't done that already, you can check off number 1 with your engagement. Number 2, volunteer to support Water for People in your own community. So right now it looks a little different, especially with more distance and virtual events, but certainly lots and lots of ways, and people are getting just super creative, which has been so much fun to be a part of figuring out ways to fundraise, host advocacy type events, and really just work together as a community to continue to share the need for Water for People programming. So some ideas: host your own birthday fundraiser. We just had a wonderful fundraiser by a young man for his bar mitzvah, which was amazing. So if you're familiar with GoFundMe charity, it's formerly called CrowdRise, but it's a platform that we engage with often. You're able to create your own page, and for whatever you want to donate. We are extremely grateful of anything that you want to utilize that platform for. If you have any questions, the email is there, volunteers@waterforpeople.org. You can organize a documentary showing. There's been some really creative virtual documentary showings. Our San Francisco Bay Area Committee does an annual documentary showing, or support a local fundraising event, which is a great segue into sharing a little bit about committees. I know we have a few amazing committee champions on the line right now, so hi to everybody. These are typically made up of people who are in the water and wastewater sector and are huge advocates for Water for People and host all sorts of fundraisers. So right now, if you check out our website on events, so it's at waterforpeople.com/events, you will see lots of upcoming ones. And I think a big silver lining of virtually shifting events is that there's really no geographic landscape that you can't, bypass to be a part of them, which is wonderful. So a couple coming up. I had noted this weekend, actually, we have two virtual events. There's our Connecticut committee is hosting a virtual yoga fundraiser. And then our LA committee, newly founded LA committee, is hosting a virtual meditation class. So if you're interested in either of those are on our website. We have plenty of others. Our Rocky Mountain Committee does a Thirsty Fest, which is a big beer festival. So likely later next year, hopefully when they're able to maybe host something in person, that would be happening. But there's all sorts of things like that. Right now, they look very different because they are mostly virtual or distanced. But on the next slide, I'll share another opportunity for you to get engaged in a distanced and virtual format as well. And then, sorry, I went ahead of myself there, but and then number 3 is getting your company or brand you love involved. So this is a really creative way that you can hopefully showcase your support for Water for People, whether it's through employee match donation, a brand or a local company that you think that would have interest in partnering with Water for People. We love to partner with companies and brands who are committed to making a difference, and we find that the brand alignment with that works really well because we are also eager to make a difference and have some amazing partners who we work with, both for for product donations or awareness campaigns. So on our site, and I think it might be posted in the chat, there's a link to show how you can double your impact. So if you have a connection, you can type it in and essentially see how that will double our impact, which is a huge benefit and something we're extremely grateful for. I'll also give a shout out to my colleague Julie Kaufman, who's on the line right now, and she is our head and our guru of all things workplace giving. So if you do have, if you think that your company would be interested in doing some sort of advocacy work or fundraising work, please reach out. You can reach out to the email there, volunteers, and I can connect you with Julie. So plenty of ways to get involved. And then on that note, our latest and greatest virtual event that we're really excited to be sharing is a World Water Classic. So this is from Friday, October 2nd to Sunday, October 11th, but registration is open now. So what this is a 6 and 60K race. So it's a 6K run or walk or hike or skip or however you choose to move, and then a 60K bike ride. So you can do one or the other, or if you are feeling extra ambitious, you're welcome to do both. As long as you complete it in between the time of Friday, October 2nd to Sunday, October 11th, then you are a great participant for the event. So participate in your own neighborhood with your family, friends, pet companions. We are really excited about this. The impetus behind the 6K, and it was actually mentioned earlier in this as well. I think Kate spoke on this, but on average, women and girls in developing countries walk 6K daily to fetch water for drinking, bathing, cooking, etc. So the 6 and 60K really came from that being a really meaningful number. There's also, as Julia mentioned, Club 6 members on here, SDG 6, so lots of synergy with 6 there. And then the 60K is the bike ride. So we felt that would be a great distance for people, challenging enough, but hopefully still really fun in the process. So you can help with our mission and furthering that by being a part of this. So we would be really excited if you're interested in signing up. The link is right there, runsignup.com/worldwaterclassic. Again, if you have questions on that email on the slide before, which is volunteers@waterforpeople.org, is a great way to reach out. So another fun piece of it is that all adult registrants will receive a Water for People branded running belt. So a nice giveaway item, and hopefully, more importantly, the knowledge that you're really changing lives and helping us to change the world for everyone forever. So we would love to engage with you on that. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. I think I'm going to pass it back to Julia now for Q&A time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Georgia, and to Ellen and Kate who presented earlier. Just always an exciting opportunity to get together and hear from my colleagues and also get to hear just new things and new ways that people talk about our work. So I am going to kind of give another plug to two of our ways to engage. So we will be taking questions throughout the rest of the town hall. So feel free to add those into the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. Also, I know I mentioned this at the beginning and Georgia gave a little plug as well, but if you post to your Instagram story or on Twitter and you tag at Water for People, we'll try to repost as many of those as possible. And so we've been just excited to see the engagement here today for everyone who's staying on the line, and also the folks who are listening and hopefully going to post a picture online as well. And so one thing that I wanted to do to give people an additional chance to post questions that they might have is navigate to that page that Georgia was saying. I think it's a new addition to our website, the Double Your Donation page. It's just a great way for you to see what impact you can have with your own employer. So I'm going to show how you can get to that via our website. And so I'm just going to share that screen one more time. Georgia also gave a beautiful plug to our website, which I can shout out to our marketing team, who I know some folks are on the line, put a lot of great work into making just a really beautiful website. So you're going to go here to get involved, and then you're going to go to this give section. And you can see we have a couple different ways, and this is great for you to see. We have our monthly program, which we said is Club 6. You can donate one time, and then you're going to go to here, Give at Work, which again is a little way for you to learn what your employer has as an offering. So we have some of our great partners down here, and this is the cool tool that Georgia was talking about. You can type in the name of your company here, who you work for, and it will see if they have a Double Your Donation program, or if they have another way that you as an employee can get involved in supporting a nonprofit like Water for People through your workplace. So it's a really great new tool that we have, and we hope that some of you can go to this link and see what you can do to support Water for People through the job that you already have. So I'm going to invite Ellen and Kate back onto the screen. So we have everyone here with us today. So as I mentioned, now we are starting our Q&A session. And so this is just a really great opportunity for us to hear from you all who are watching. It could be questions that you had prior to the town hall. It can be things that came up for you as you were listening to all of our presenters share a little bit more about our work. And we, like I said, this is our second town hall, and we had just such an incredible engagement for the first one. So we're excited to incorporate this Q&A portion as well. So I'm actually going to start by asking a question that was submitted prior, so to one of our folks who RSVP'd, and I'm actually going to pose it to Ellen. So this one person asked, where does the water come from and how is the water treated? So we've been talking a lot about our program, these big picture things, SDG 6, but if we, scale it back a little bit, where does really the journey begin?
Yeah, great, thank you. So where does the water come from? That's a big question, but it really goes back to some of the work that I was talking about in that third target related to water resources management. So even though we work in a number of different districts, the watersheds or the wetlands that serve as the source of where the water comes from could be located within the districts where we work, or could be located outside of the districts where we work as well, because those watersheds don't necessarily stick to the geographic boundaries that we draw for districts. So it really highlights the importance of our water resources management work and working with partners outside of just the specific districts and district governments where we partner, to make sure that those wetlands and those watersheds are protected and sustainable. So in terms of treatment, water quality is one of our major challenges to sustainability that we experience every year in all of the 9 countries where we work. So part of that work starts at the watershed, at the source where the water comes from, and protecting that. Another part of it comes when we start building water systems to deliver that water to the community. So whether it's a pipe system that's pumped or gravity fed, or whether it's a borehole or a hand pump, we work on different strategies such as chlorination at the system level to make sure that the water that's delivered to households, to families, is safe for drinking. We do a lot of work with water quality outside of just chlorination and the treatment. We support district and national governments with the policies and standards that they set for water quality, which is different in every place that we work. We supply equipment, testing equipment, to district governments and district wash offices. We do training for how to do the testing, and we've supported different laboratories for testing in different districts where we work as well. I'll stop there and see if Kate wants to jump in too. Okay.
You got the thumbs up. Cool. Well, thanks, Ellen, for starting us off for the Q&A. And before I go into some additional questions, and I'm going to be passing off to Georgia here in a second, I wanted to highlight we have Eleanor Allen, who's our CEO, on the line. She's a big bike rider, a cyclist, and so maybe we can have a whole nother town hall, or having her just talk about the very, very long bike ride that she took last summer called Race Across America. So it looks like Eleanor is going to be participating in the World Water Classic, biking the 60K. So I think I'll stick with the running, but maybe next year I'll do the long bike ride as well. Well, so Georgia, to continue our section, we've had a lot of folks who submitted questions beforehand, interested in ways they can get involved. And I think you did a really great overview of the different opportunities we have coming up. But I wanted to highlight, Walter here asked a question, and we have, I think, Kimberly on the line as well about what really are we doing in the US? How do we engage folks? And specifically with Walter's question, how do we engage folks who have this expertise that is very applicable to the type of work that we do? So if you could just address some of those, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. That's a perfect pairing. I think I'll start with World Water Corps first, and then get into around how that is intersecting actually with our US and Canada study that's going on right now. So for those who are unfamiliar with what the World Water Corps is, it is our technical volunteering arm. So Walter, to your question, if you have experience in, it looks like data science and data management, which is amazing and extremely helpful in things like in our more desk study, I would say, for our World Water Corps. But typically in times where we would travel, the mechanism for volunteers to utilize their talents in a very specified format would be through our World Water Corps. So what would happen is someone in a country program would say, hey, we are looking for a volunteer for this typically very specific role for something that we, it would be X time to Y time. They put together a terms of reference, and then I would share that out with our World Water Corps volunteer list. So if you're interested in getting on that, I sound like a broken record, but volunteers@waterforpeople.org is a great way to reach out and get on that list. You can also see lots of information on our website about the World Water Corps, what it does and what it does not do. It certainly, I think, was touched on earlier in this, so I won't harp on it, but around the kind of well-intentioned idea behind some organizations, and our own, when in our founding, was more volunteer-based. So this is really a way to make sure that that our country programs are really in the driver's seat of that volunteer experience. So not making volunteer roles for people who are interested in volunteering and then figuring out how to fit it in. It's really kind of reversing that and letting the professionals and those who are so talented at their work and our global colleagues in the countries where we work decide that and say, hey, these are areas where we need assistance, and then utilize incredible supporters like the World Water Corps and it sounds like you too as well, Walter, who are able to fit that niche. Right now, what we're working towards, and again, I kind of mentioned this before, obviously travel is looking really different for us these days, and just limited offerings, and by limited I mean 0 offerings for travel right now for World Water Corps, but we do have the ability to connect and work on some desk studies, which are wonderful ways for those same types of volunteers to be able to contribute in a more virtual format. And this kind of segues into the question you just shared, Julia, and I'm forgetting the name of the individual in the chat, maybe Kimberly, who had asked about working domestically. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Who had asked about working domestically. So actually we have a World Water Corps assignment that is currently in progress at the moment. So we have our 3 volunteers who were selected out of a number of amazing applicants who were interested in working with us on a landscape assessment to really help us better understand the need both in the US and Canada. So there are amazing organizations who are domestic, who do a lot of work in that. Dig Deep is one of them, if you're familiar with them, working in Navajo Nation and in Appalachia in particular. So this assessment is really to kind of take a bird's eye view as to what, if anything, is our role, or where can we be helping, if anywhere, is this work already being done? If so, are there ways for us to better elevate the work? So kind of a full study as to, is there a place for us? And the answer might be no, and that's what a wonderful answer that would be, that we would be able to then support those organizations who are already doing that. So more to come, definitely a very exciting update. But I think to further expand on that point is Water for People was really created. We were born out of the American Water Works Association in 1991 as the kind of arm of international, development and working outside of the U.S., because the American Water Works Association has such an amazing stronghold on water, the water and wastewater sector, and how they can best support here domestically. We still work very, very closely hand in hand with AWWA, and then also WEF. So if we have any AWWAers or WEFers on the line, hi to you guys. You guys are awesome. And all of our committees that I had mentioned earlier, who primarily sit in that water and wastewater sector, are members of both of those organizations. So we really are grateful and really showcase and highlight that relationship, because they do incredible domestic work. And we are super fortunate to be connected with them, obviously in a very deep format with the founding, and then also now with our committees, with the financing and the funding that they provide for unrestricted dollars that go to our country programs. So a big answer for a big question, but I really appreciate it. And I think it's really important to highlight that work, because, as things are progressing, we're finding, different needs in different areas. And unfortunately, that's a reality domestically too, that there are people who do need the same services that we provide, but just making sure we're being mindful and tactful that if there are other organizations doing similar work, the last thing we would want to do is step in where we're not needed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Georgia. I like the point that you highlighted about, one, the adaptability, not only now, specifically during COVID, but also the consistent learning and adaptability of our programs. I think specifically when looking at a program like World Water Corps, you want to make sure that those positions are serving the communities where we work and our country teams as best as possible. And so this next question that I think, again, is about the adaptability piece that I'm going to pass over to Kate. A lot of folks ask, because of COVID-19, what are the effects that we're seeing on our work, on our organization as a whole? A couple key ones that people pointed out, Kate, that I would love for you to talk about, I think, going back to that adaptability piece, is how elements of communication and even our supply chain have been affected by COVID.
Yeah, so like literally everyone in the world, we've definitely experienced setbacks in the pandemic and had to pivot and shift, and are still actively working on that as an organization. Most obviously, we've fully pivoted to a remote working environment. For some folks, that's much easier in a sense that we're already an international organization. So my day job is already working remotely with people who don't live in the same place as I do. So it's been we've really hit the ground running in a lot of aspects. And then at the same time, we have offices in a lot of locations that don't have really great Wi-Fi, which has been even greater strained from the pandemic and everyone trying to go remote. So certainly there's setbacks there, but there actually are a lot of other countries, and our one strength of Water for People is that we're pretty hyper local in terms of our implementation, and so a lot of other countries around the world are actually opening back up in pretty significant ways, and so work is able to continue again. Construction has been, for some of the work that is infrastructure heavy. Ellen mentioned several health clinics and schools in the areas where we're already working that don't have hand washing stations, water for hand washing stations, and we've tried to accelerate that progress. Construction I really think most countries in pandemic response was largely happening throughout even lockdowns, and even in places where it has stalled, it's already picked back up. And so construction is moving forward. A lot of what's been stalled has been some of the community engagement, the WASH, education aspects have been put on pause due to social distancing requirements. But and then our work is so focused in partnering with local district governments. The only other thing I'll say, so those district governments have been so entrenched in urgent pandemic response to respond to their citizens' needs. And so Water for People has really pivoted in a lot of locations to say, okay, let's hop on board. How can we help? We're going to set aside maybe this one thing that we were working on with you before, and then really jump in and help with pandemic response. But in general, we're seeing because of the pandemic, we're really seeing a strengthened political will towards systemic change for lasting water and sanitation services, and a lot more. I'm quite hopeful that a lot more resources and emphasis will be put on these systems into the future from our local partners.
Great. Thanks so much, Kate. Ellen, was there anything you wanted to add on that one? Cool. Yeah, I think especially looking at what governments and communities are doing to react to the current situation, I think it's ever more present that public health crises like this are going to continue to happen. And so it's about that readiness piece. How are we enabling and empowering communities to not only, yes, deal with what's in front of them right now, dealing with COVID-19 and the impact on their own communities, but how are we empowering and leading them up for success for future ones that are going to come in the future. And so I definitely like that last point, Kate. I know our Chief Programs Officer wrote a great blog on political will, and it's a big topic at our organization about really just leveraging those relationships that we have and making sure that we're influencing policy that's going to be in place long into the future. So on that same vein, and I am going to pass this one off to Ellen, I think the other part of the questions that we've been getting is, what are you doing right now? How is COVID affecting that work? But I would love to talk and kind of look into the future about how do we think the current year is shifting the future of progress. So I think one person asked, and I'll pull this question up here, similar to the one Kate just addressed, but so what were we able to accomplish in 2020, and how do we think that that is setting us up for the future years of our programming?
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. And Kate mentioned some of the construction projects being able to continue, which has been great. But just a quick note on the way that we measure progress to begin with. So the way that we track our impact towards SDG 6 is measuring our progress towards specific milestones. And we have milestones related to both pieces of our model, everyone and forever. So on the everyone side, we track our progress towards reaching milestones at the household level, the community level, and the public institution level, which is schools and health centers. So if we reach everyone at any one of those levels, then we've achieved a milestone for that year. And same with forever. We have a set of 8 indicators that measure our progress towards sustainability at the service authority, service provider, and water resources management levels. And once we've reached a significant level of sustainability in those indicators, then we can say we've reached the forever milestone. So one of the other maybe setbacks that we experienced in 2020 is that we were not able to conduct our annual monitoring for the year to tell us whether or not we've reached those milestones. Normally that includes door-to-door household surveys. So clearly for health and safety reasons, we weren't able to do that this year. But for last year in 2019, we achieved a total of 21 of those milestones. 7 of those were brand new last year. And the remaining were maintained, which is a big accomplishment in itself and speaks to the sustainability of our work. While most of those milestones are for everyone, meaning we're reaching everyone at the community, household, or public institution level with access to high quality water, 2 of those milestones were actually for forever. So in 2 of our communities in Bolivia, or in 2 of our districts in Bolivia, we've reached those forever milestones, and we're confident that the WASH services that have been established will last forever. So that's exciting.
Thanks so much, Ellen. And you very well teed me up for the next question that I'm going to pass over to Kate, because I think one of the things that I find really interesting about our work and what I love talking about is that forever piece, right? So I think similar to how Kate was sharing in earlier slides, that there has been this narrative in the sector about initial access. So digging a well, getting that kind of the first people who are able to get access to water, but what does that mean years down the line? And so I am going to take this question, I think another one from Kimberly, which is great, and pass it to Kate about the country of the most impact. And I know we could take that in a ton of different ways. I think all of our country programs are unique in themselves, and which is why, our model is so crucial about having local teams, local leadership in each of the countries where we work. But since Ellen kind of led us up on these forever milestones, I'd love for you to go into a little bit more of what those mean and what that context looked like specifically in Bolivia.
Yeah, totally. I think that there's a ton of different ways to measure impact, right? And so I think I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go big. So I'm going to highlight a couple different countries real quickly. Bolivia is one where we've seen a lot of progress on reaching milestones that are really hard to reach. And I don't know if there's ever been international development water and sanitation programs that have reached the milestones that some of our programs in Bolivia have reached. And so we've seen it really incredible success there. And we're definitely working on scaling that work and continuing that good work in Bolivia. I would highlight Rwanda too. Our country programs in Rwanda have had also a ton of success. And then Rwanda is such a small country. We work in 3 districts of only 30 districts across the entire country. And the work in those 3 districts have been so successful that we're kind of turning heads at the national level, and other districts have been requesting us to come in. And so we're working on scaling that district-wide approach across the entire country of Rwanda. I would highlight Uganda too. Some of the sanitation work that we've done in markets has really reached a national scale and is impacting people all over the country of Uganda. Uganda is a country with so much political will for this issue that if I had to take a bet on which country might some of the first countries in the world to reach the SDG 6, Uganda would be one of my first bets. India, we have programs in India, and there is just a ton of people in India. So if you were to measure progress based off of the number of people with new water services, you can't ignore India because there's literally so many people that live there. So that's what I would say in response to that.
Thanks, Kate. It's way better than just singling out one. I appreciate that. And I think too, it's just similarly to how Ellen was talking about the intersectionality of the goals. You can't just measure success with one metric, right? You have to talk about how WASH is playing into all of the other services and all of the other goals. And so I think that was a really nice way to highlight that. So the next question I'm gonna bring up, I think, a little bit of a shift, but I think something that has been brought up time and time again, which is this piece of political will. I think this is something that we're seeing in our own country now, and also in obviously the countries where we work. And so I think this is kind of a 2-part question, but I would love to pass it off to Georgia first I know she mentioned a little bit about the ties and the really strong relationships that we have in the water and wastewater sector. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how those have helped us not only leverage our own mission, but also bring that mission here to the US, because a lot of times if folks aren't seeing how water, sanitation, and hygiene services look different in different countries, then they might not know really what, like in this question, that global vision is for safe water for every person. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, through your role, how you see those interactions playing out day by day.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be a tad redundant just because I'm going to give more American Water Works Association and Water Environment Federation shout outs, but absolutely. And it's such an important point to note. So thanks for whoever submitted this question. So as mentioned, and I realized I didn't, I know Julia mentioned this earlier that we have a lot of acronyms. AWWA is American Water Works Association, and WEF is Water Environment Federation. So both of those organizations are here. Based here in the U.S., WEF is a little more global, obviously with the name of AWWA. It's much more localized with American Water Works. But I think the strong connection, like Julia mentioned, that we have with both of those groups, both on a kind of granular level between each section and member association, which means kind of the local group, and then also as a whole, really, I think, engages at-home resources to support the global water crisis response. The amount of education, continuing education credits, the ability for people here in the US and Canada who work in the water sector to receive opportunities to make a difference within the US public water utilities, I think is huge. There's so many benefits, I think, to being a part of both of these groups and our strategic alignment with both of those. I'm a little biased because obviously I work with them very often, but I really think it is just so vast, the ways that they can be useful and necessary. I think the ability to have, like this question mentions, a global vision of understanding what their role is, I think is crucial. I think we talked about this a little bit as well, like pivoting. I think the both AWWA and WEF have done a really wonderful job of being able to, instead of have these enormous conferences in person, which if anybody in here is in the water and wastewater sector, you'll likely know these, but ACE is the annual AWWA conference, and then WEFTEC is the annual WEF conference. They're both pivoting online, so if you're in this sector and want more information, I would highly suggest AWWA is hosting a virtual summit next month, and then WEFTEC is hosting their virtual WEFTEC Connect in October, both of which are focusing on domestic issues as well as global issues. We are fortunate enough to be included on both of those, so if you're attending either of those, please come by and visit us. We'll be likely in some sort of virtual booth, probably looking a lot like this. And I think just the emphasis that specifically our committee members who are part of Water for People committees and in each of these sections and MAs really do a wonderful job of highlighting the importance of bringing safe water and sanitation services to communities around the world. So I just can't overstate the appreciation and support that I have and as a whole Water for People has for both of these organizations. But I'm happy to pass it to somebody else because I know this answer probably can be answered in a million different ways, and that's from my space specifically working within those two realms of AWWA and WEF.
Yeah, absolutely. But I appreciate that, and I think that at least from my point of view, I think just getting to interact with some of the great volunteers that we have, a huge part of the work that they're doing to support Water for People is in all of those individual conversations, whether they're having it with their network, their families, or in their employers. I think it's just familiarizing more and more people about what is the global water crisis, what is the global sanitation crisis, who's it affecting, and what organizations like Water for People are doing something to fix that and to fix the future of that situation. So with our last 2 minutes before I kind of give a closing, I'm going to pass off to Kate. Kim was actually on our last town hall, but for Kate, I think we have had a lot of questions about the kind of the complexity of the actual water that we're drinking. So someone asked about rainwater, that, you know, it seems to be such an accessible and affordable, obviously, and also available resource, but not always readily able to drink. And I think Dennis here asked a great question as well, with sometimes that you are able to build a borehole, but then the water that you're accessing isn't actually potable, so not able to be to be for humans to drink. And so I would love, I know I'm only giving you 1 or 2 more minutes to answer this question, but just a little bit high level about how do we handle the complexity of making sure that the water we're accessing is able to be for humans to drink.
Absolutely. So quickly on the Dennis experienced fluoride and alkalinity issues in the groundwater. A lot of our efforts and some of the places, boreholes we've also drilled in East Africa, has been plagued by quality issues, and a lot of significant efforts can go into groundwater mapping and exploratory studies to really understand the reach of different naturally occurring contaminants in the groundwater to help make sure that we're drilling boreholes in places that will have potable water. And Water for People is that we've also had a lot of learnings in that space, and I'm proud to say I've also had some successes to overcome like these significant challenges that have led to investment where you drill a well and then it's non-potable water, right? And so we've seen a lot of success in overcoming that by being more intentional with our groundwater mapping and getting a little more technical to work with hydrogeologists in the area. Nevertheless, there are places with naturally occurring metals, fluoride, iron, I'm thinking of in some places, fluoride is naturally occurring in some places where we work in Bolivia. And there are some, it is hard to treat for those, and there are some more innovative filtration systems that can be proven effective in that too. And so it's definitely kind of a question for our techie engineers that we employ in staff, and there is, if you dig into the literature, there is some important learnings about affordable filtration systems for those naturally occurring contaminants. And then real quickly, rainwater, to address a question that Julia brought up about rainwater that came in from the previously. Rainwater is, it can be polluted from air in areas where there's significant air quality issues. In most of the places in the world, there's not significant air, where at least where Water for People is working, there's not significant air quality issues because there's not significant industrial activity like directly in that vicinity. And so that means that in these rural areas that are in so desperate need of water, the rainwater that's falling is actually already purified and ready to go drink. It does get contaminated when it falls on roofs and when it gets contained in storage containers. And so there's some real basic treatment like with chlorine you can do to make that sure that water is potable. And rainwater harvesting in general has been really significant for some of the schools and health centers that we work in East Africa, for them to kind of have an off-the-grid managed water system right there at their own building. And then also some of the really rural households in Latin America where there maybe doesn't make sense to have like a whole community water system. We can just have like a single household little water system with rainwater harvesting. So that's definitely, the rain is definitely a powerful resource that we capture in the right context.
Thank you, Kate. I know I gave you two really, really big questions in just 2 minutes, but I think you did awesome. So I appreciate people who have stuck with us now. I know we're a minute over, but just want to give a final note of gratitude for everyone that joined us today. We really, really appreciate the participation and the questions. It's always so exciting to see so many folks who are just really interested in learning more. And so if you are still on and you want to get in touch, this is my email. You can feel free to reach out with any questions. I can direct you to the right people. I know Georgia shared the volunteers email as well, but just make sure to reach out to us, stay in touch, and stay connected. So we hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday from wherever you are in the world. I saw we have Egypt and Cleveland, Ohio, and so we're here in Denver, Colorado, so we're just all over the map. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you at the next town hall. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, all the supporters.